Welcome to Marsha's Plate. This is an interview episode where we talk to friends, family, other community members, and anybody else we want to talk to. Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey, how you been doing? Just checking in today. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is your girl Diamond, and I am here with Josie Pickens. She is a Houston organizer, educator, a journalist, a cultural critic whose work goes across race, gender, sexuality, all that kind of stuff. She is the creator of the Love No Limit podcast. I've been on there, had a dope ass time. She just created a safe place for everybody to be black as fuck, queer as fuck, and say what the fuck we want. And she's a professor. She has so much. You could say, if in simple form, she's just a girl from the south side of Houston. But to me, she feels like home. She feels like every home girl that I had in school that loved me and defended me. She feels familiar. She feels familial. She is black as fuck, queer as fuck, and just an all around dope ass chick. And I'm just glad that I know her. So, Josie, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. Not me tearing up from that little introduction because I also am such a huge fan of yours, Diamond. Your voice, your vision, and the way that you carry it. You know what I mean? Is everything to me. And I've been watching you for a while, and I was like, one day I'm gonna get in her face and in her ear. So I'm so happy that I probably pushed that opportunity, but I'm happy that we met and got to engage and yeah, become sisters because that's what it feels like to me too. It feels like you feel like family. You feel like the homegirl and the sister. And yeah, so I'm happy to be here and I'm excited about this conversation.
I want to just give people a introduction to you and your history. So,
Mhm.
can you tell me in regards to like growing up as a black girl in Houston specifically, who was loving on you? Who was your family? How did Houston shape you and to the woman that you are today? Like, who was your family unit? Who was all that kind of details of your.
All of that kind of detail. So I'm a South Side girl. I grew up on the South Side of Houston, in a community called Hiram Clark. You know, I grew up in with a pretty big family. My mom comes from a family of it's 11 of them, and my father has like five siblings. My parents are originally from Louisiana, from this small black town in Louisiana, and they moved here to the big city, girl, to start a new life and started their family here, and that's kind of my foundation. I came from a very loving family, also a very, strict in the ways that we were like, I grew up in the hood, but my family was country. I don't know if you know the distinction of that.
I
It's a little
absolutely do.
different. You know what I mean? You know exactly what I mean, right? And so I feel like I had the best of both worlds. Like I had the warmth and the togetherness that you get to feel when you have those country experiences. I spent a lot of my formative years and early years spending a lot of time in Louisiana in that small knit community. And like I said, my parents being raised in an all black town in this small town really kind of fortified my blackness and my and where I fit into the landscape of blackness
Mm.
for me because it my parents trusted blackness. So at a time when I grew up, so I'm about to be 49, girl. So I was born in 76, you know, came of age in the 80s and 90s, and particularly like late 70s, 80s. That was during the busing era. That was during the big assimilation era, right? So this is like, of course, post integration, where Black folks, particularly in the South, are trying to be upwardly mobile and all of these things. And I was one of those little smart mouth ass, but also smart GT kids. And my parents were always encouraged to send me outside of the community that I grew up in. But one of the things that I think that was I'm so fortunate to have had was that because Blackness is all my family knew, I went to all neighborhood schools and I had community in those schools. I had, at this time, Black teachers who loved us like their own and invested in us and could pick up the slack where my parents really didn't know how to um, help me and guide me, right?
Mhm.
Because again, my parents come from this small town. They had limited traditional education. Although they were, I feel like my father was one of the most brilliant men that I knew. He had sixth grade education. But so where my parents kind of fell short in knowing how to guide me into, academic progress and all of these other things, I had those Black teachers that saw me
Mhm.
and saw the light in me and the potential in me. And so that was kind of like my extended family. So I grew up in a time when, being a part of a black community was something that was beautiful. We didn't have a lot, but we had each other and
Okay.
we knew how to invest in each other, you know?
Who were some of the people that were kind of like the mirror holders? Like when you think of in your life, like how particularly to counter I know you're describing almost like a utopia of being black and
Yeah.
proud. But we also know the bigger world and the the bigger narrative can sometimes creep in and
Hmm.
give a opposite view of how we think about our blackness. Who are some people that kind of held up like a mirror to you that reflect things that were counter to that kind of master narrative?
Yeah, I think in many ways, my parents, like I always credit my father with really kind of rooting me down in a feminist politic. Like
Mm,
I didn't know it at the time, and of course he would have never used that language. But my father, I was always a mouthy girl with a lot of opinions. And my father never stopped me or halted me from being that way. I always had room to speak. I always had room to be my full self, to be inquisitive, to be talkative. He used to, I wanted to be a teacher from a very early age. So he would let me use the walls in the garage to play teacher, all of those things. Like he really always allowed me to make my own decisions and my own mistakes. And so, a lot of us who were able to grow up with our Black fathers, many of us really kind of were conditioned and contained by those Black men who were trying to protect us. Um, and my father just let me be a free Black girl. And I always just imagined that it just wasn't a big deal about it for him. Not that he didn't care, but just like it wasn't a big deal about him. But I later on, after my father passed away, my mom would tell me how he would just worry about me being out in the world and exploring in all the ways that he allowed me space to do. Um, would be like up, waiting to hear me get home or waiting to get that phone call, but also never pushing me outside of being free and being liberated in a lot of ways. And so I'm like, yeah, he was forming the foundation of my political identity and my Black feminist identity in those days.
mm,
And my mother was just a blues woman. You know what I mean? And so I also grew up around very strong Black women um, who were traditional in some ways, but non-traditional in a lot of ways. Like, my mom, I got my mouth from my mama. You know what I mean? So I grew up around women who had something to say and did what they wanted to do, and the men just kind of had to fall in line. I'm grateful for that example because what it taught me is that because my mom was and is a difficult woman, right? What I learned through watching my parents' relationship, because they were married for over 30 years before my father passed away, is that you can be a difficult woman, you can be boisterous, you can be all of these things, and it doesn't mean that you won't have access to love and care. Also, being a brown skinned girl, a girl in a bigger body, like these are the women that I grew up around, and all of them were married. They never lacked
Period.
having relationship. You know what I mean? So I didn't grow up with an idea that there was some part of me that was unworthy of whatever it is that I wanted in life. So I am grateful for that example from my parents. And I would say, I had teachers like I remember Miss Harris, my fifth grade teacher. Girl, the first time I did a protest, honey, fifth grade, I was the class president, and we were having lunch in the cafeteria. Now, the doll always brought her lunch because my mama didn't play that country. You know what I mean? School lunch stuff. Because what are they serving in that? What is that mush? Right. But it was somebody who had a lunch, and it was probably a free lunch because, again, these are hood schools. And we felt like it was a roach in this person's Mexican rice. I remember it so vividly. Girl, so we got a baggie from my lunch and we saved the rice and we went back to the class and told my teacher. And she basically was like, well, what do y'all want to do? This was the first time that I understood protest. You know what I mean? Like being able to speak up and be like, this is wrong. We should not be, living and learning in these conditions, and somebody needs to do something. We used to have this guy in Houston who would report on, I was telling my daughter about this the other day because this was not her time. His name was Marvin Zindler. He was this reporter who would report on restaurants and like all of these other things. And so we were like, we were going to call Marvin Zindler and do a report on the school cafeteria. Now, of course, it didn't go that far, but I did get reprimanded. I feel like I got suspended. Girl, and my parents had to take off work and come up to the school, which is now, for a Black parent to have to take off work. I don't remember that my parents disciplined me. Maybe I got punished, but I didn't get spanked. And I came from a spanking household. But I remember Miss Harris encouraging me to be a leader. Like I said, I was class president. She saw that I had a certain knack for communication, even at that early stage. And I had an aunt, my aunt Carrie, she used to call me Little Angela Davis. Where's Little Angela Davis at?
I love that.
You should have said, child, you should have saw my mama's face when she had to come up to that school. If you were doing what? Now, of all the things your little badass want to do, you want to be up here staging boycotts and protests. At what age are you in the fifth grade? I can't think about that. But, always been a radical little something.
I love that.
Um, my love for writing came from a Black teacher that I had in high school, Miss Imogene Stafford. I still remember her name. She was a Claire Huxtable kind of girl, like school teacher, taught English, very so of course degreed because you had to be to teach in the schools then, and just the aesthetic I'm talking about. Like the coiffure, like the hair was laid, and she wore pearls, and I'm sure she was an AKA girl,
It
and
was giving.
all,
It was
yeah,
giving, AKA.
it's giving AKA all of the things. And I remember that, I had encouragement around my writing because I used to write poetry and do all of these things, and from a very early age, my teachers would accuse me of plagiarizing. So if I wrote a poem, they'd be like, "Well, where did you get this poem from?" And I'm like, "No, I wrote it." I remember writing this kind of like one woman stage play where I was playing this enslaved woman. And I wrote the script for that. And, people would think that my writing and the ways that I communicated that I stole from other places. This followed me all the way through college. But Miss Imogene Stafford always knew that those were my words. And she always encouraged me to, I want you to enter this contest. I want you to do these things. Like, I see you and I want you to be able to see yourself,
Mm.
as award winning from a very early age, in high school. So those are some of the examples. And I could go on, I went to the elite and grand Texas Southern University in Houston. Started out at U of H grounds over there with the white folks, and it just wasn't working. Okay. It wasn't working because, again, I had a full Black experience. Up until that point, got a full ride scholarship to go to U of H and went there. And I was like, oh no, honey. The culture shock was too much for me and I just didn't enjoy it. So I just tried it on across the road to TSU, and was a part of the very Black, very proud English department there, who also continued to encourage me to to write and to speak and to dream. And so, yeah, those are all of my foundations. I truly believe, when I think about all that I've achieved, and I can't say that, I didn't grow up with a lot of resources. My parents didn't grow up with a lot of understanding of how to get me into certain parts of my life. And I just think that, it was divine order and God sending me angels around the way who could see me and who helped me see myself. And I'm here.
Oh my God, I want to thank all of our new patrons this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay, 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 yay. So, not only are you helping to sustain this particular podcast, I also donate to other podcasts, I donate to other organizations. I have my finger on the pulse of the community. And I know a lot of grassroots organizations that are doing great work out here. So you're not only helping to sustain us, you're helping to sustain other people in a community because I put my money where my mouth is. That's just the kind of bitch I am. Community as fuck. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you. And if you have not become a patron, why have you not? You can donate as low as $1 a month. It doesn't matter. Anything helps. Please. Do I have to play Sarah McLachlan and show you puppies? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to resort to what the white people do to get you to give them money? All righty. Anyway, thank y'all. And the Patreon and PayPal link is at the bottom. Back to the show. Do you have a coming out story or like a journey into recognizing your queerness?
Child, listen. As we all know, you queer. In the same way that the girls know, I like boys, I always knew that I was attracted to really kind of all genders. Like I consider myself pan, like baby, if I like it, I like it. It don't matter what it's hearts, not parts. Is that what they say? It's the
Period.
energy for me. You know what I mean? I probably started kissing girls very early, funny story. Because let me pause and say this: my mom told my niece, and my niece is in her 30s, recently because they were having a conversation around um, mask women and femme women and why mask women dress like men. Why do they do that? You know, she's not going to ask me, but she felt comfortable asking my niece. And then apparently she told my niece, well, you know, I always knew she was like that. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, well, girl, why you ain't tell me? You had me out here with these raggedy niggas all these years. You could save me some time and heartache.
Period.
Even like them that much, girl. Like, what was it? Why you ain't tell me if you knew? But the way that I was officially outed, because I had my little girl crushes, and I would, you know, I remember the first girl that I kissed who, you know, absolutely is a lesbian today. It's so interesting. And this was like, um, I won't say any names or any places, but but you know, always had like that desire to like just experiment. I've always been very like free and always felt very liberated. And I guess that's part of growing up around blues women. You know what I mean? Who figured out how to grab hold to their own liberation in whatever ways they saw fit. But the way that my parents found out is because, girl, I had this girlfriend, my first girlfriend, and she looked like Michelle Ndegeocello from the 90s.
Mm.
Oh, she was so fine. She was so fine. And all the niggas would be on her. All the boys would be on her because she was so fine. And I'd be like, nah, that's mine. You know, that's mine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Move around. Now she had this stud homie that she used to hang out with. Now the stud homie had a girlfriend that was a stripper, a dancer, right? And they used to get into it all the time. They'd be fighting this, that. I'm talking about fist fighting, like all the toxic shit. Now my little girlfriend called my mama's house because remember this is the 90s before we had full access to cell phones. You know, we had pagers, but we were still using house phones.
Right.
So she was at her homegirl's house calling my mama's house, and I think I might have called her back or whatever. So the toxic stripper girlfriend was going through the caller ID. This is how far we going back, Diamond.
Yeah.
Going through the caller ID, calling back all the numbers in the caller ID because I know my nigga is out here doing some shit she ain't got no business doing, and I'm about to catch that nigga, right? Calls my house and outs me to my mama.
Damn.
Like my mom, and I still don't know how that conversation came to be. But apparently she must have told my mama, listen, your little girl is out here getting licked and sticked, and you need to, you know, just FYI. Um, and
How was that conversation when you saw your mom again?
I feel like I feel like there was never really fully a conversation. I feel like she mentioned something about somebody calling the house, or maybe she never mentioned it. I can't remember exactly. Maybe my girlfriend at the time told me, child, you know, Patrice, whatever her name was, called your mama and told your mama this and that. She was mad at whatever the stud girl, you know. But that is and I don't think we had any conversation about it. um but she knew, and I don't think my dad had any. I don't think me and my dad had a conversation about, because I would bring this woman around. I've never been I've always been I've always liked who I like, and I've never not acted like I like somebody. So even when I was dating this woman, I brought her around the family events, and I'd be on her the same way that I would have been on a man if I had a boyfriend. My family just used to be like, we just see who she gonna show up with, and we just roll with that. Like I never felt shame around who I was attracted to because I'm a lover girl.
You
So if I'm
never, it
in,
sounds like you never had the BDL bug. You just like, yeah, we don't need to talk about it, but I'm gonna come and be free.
but I'm gonna come and be free, and we can talk about it if you say something. But if you don't say nothing, I guess we cool. You know what I mean? And I'm going to. I think in a lot of ways, I've always been fortunate enough to, and I understand the privilege of that. I grew up, my family's from Louisiana, so we're Catholic. We don't have that deep Southern Baptist tradition that might have skewed or changed. It wasn't that same kind of Bible thumping.
Hmm.
Um, it was something that, queerness was not something that was celebrated, but it wasn't cast out in the ways that it might have been in more traditional Black Southern Baptist households. And so they would just like look and girl, I remember my mama used to tell me this was during this time because I was probably about 19 or 20. She was like, girl, I just used to pray that the streets wouldn't take you. So I was out doing all kinds of stuff, girl.
Let
Out doing all kinds, just experiment with life and loving it.
me
And that
ask you
was a
this.
part of my experimentation and loving life. So I understand that there is a great privilege with that I never necessarily had to come out. My mom recently, or this might have been like a couple of years ago, one of my cousins cut her hair really short. And remember, I told you the girl that I was dating was like Michelle and Dege Ocello back in the day. So she had that low, like South African shortcut. And my mom was like, yeah, your cousin cut her hair like that girl. You remember her? I was like, I do, mama. And we just moved on, you know?
Oh, I want to ask you, but you talked about, your mom talking about like the masculine and feminine and asking those questions about the masculine. Me and my homegirl Sam, what's up, Sam? I know you listen. We were talking about being femmes in the queer community, and I consider you a high femme, like
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
We like girly shit. We like makeup.
Yeah.
We like being women, and so I want to ask you, how do you feel about feminists as a politic? Like, how do you feel as a black femme? What do you feel like your place is in bucking up kind of these narratives around being a femme? Because a lot of people think like we are taking it like the easy way out because some of our how we look and how we present is really aligned with the binary da 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 da. Da. So How do you feel about being a black femme politically?
It's so interesting because, I have these conversations a lot. I understand the way that I'm able to move about the world, and I'm always ready and willing to address my privilege in that. Like, I understand that the way that I'm able to move through the world as a Black femme woman is very different than the way that a Black mask woman might be able to move. You know what I mean? People know about my queerness if I offer it, right? It's not an assumption that is made. And for a long time, because of my fluidity, like I just always kind of moved the way that I wanted and dated who I wanted. And so it wasn't until really very recent, maybe like a couple of years ago, where I realized, oh, the missing piece is that I'm not a part of queer community.
Hmm.
So I would still be in straight spaces, even though I operated in my own queerness in those spaces. But I always felt like there's something missing, right? Like I'm missing something. And I needed to be in community with other queer folks. Now, girl, I barely want to be in straight spaces. You know what I mean? Because I've found what I was looking for and what I was missing. And so I think that as a Black femme queer woman, I've started being more forthright about my queer identity. like identifying myself as a Black queer woman, like putting that even when I write articles and things, I will identify my queerness in ways that I didn't in the past because I think that it's important for people to be able to see that and to be able to have models for what that looks like. So that because I understand that everybody hasn't had the privilege that I had to be able to just move about the world the way that I wanted to move about the world. Um, and there are people who are afraid to, as they say, live in their truths or whatever. They're afraid to, even some Black femme women. I know women who are just discovering their queerness, who've been married for a long time. Because I've been married a couple times, child engaged a couple of times, and I was still queer in those relationships. So nothing is ever a surprise to anyone, but I know women who have stifled that and who have been miserable much of their lives because they were so dedicated to being good women and good daughters and good, all of these things and sold themselves short in the process of that. So I think that I've had so many women tell me that, the way that I live so openly and the way that I share my life publicly has really helped them find their own path toward liberation. And some queer women as well. And that makes me so happy. I have a friend who, recently divorced, her husband that she was married to for a long time and is now so in love with this woman and we do organizing work together. And I remember when this all happened for her, she was like, girl, we were in the organizing space. She was like, girl, we gotta talk. We gotta talk, girl. And like just 'cause I'd never seen her be so light and so free. And she was like, it was you being public about your queerness and being public about your relationships and all of these things because I dated for a long time mostly men with women sprinkled in. I've dated trans men. Um it wasn't until probably a few years ago that I was in my first public lesbian relationship. You know what I mean? And I have had so many people tell me like I needed to see that, see
Mhm.
a woman like you living like that.
I think about myself. I know when I transitioned, my goal was to kind of just blend in, assimilate into cis heteronormativity. And so when people saw me, I want you to just see a regular girl.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be regular. But as I have gotten older, probably around like 33, 34. And I don't know if I'm going to explain this right, but I want you to see me as a regular woman in the sense of just a girl. Like I want you to see when you look at me, I want to pass. I know that can be
Right.
problematic in the current times, but that's just how I grew up. I'm a 90s
Yeah.
film queen. But I do not want you to think that I'm not a queer woman. I want you to think I'm a
Right.
woman, but I want you to know I'm a
I want
queer
you to
woman.
know.
I
I
want you
want
to
you to
know
know.
that I'm a part of the queer community, not in the sense of maybe, and I don't know what that looked like because all of our expressions is different, but I
Right.
want you to know that I'm in the LGBT community. Maybe you
Yes.
might not know I'm in the T, but you know I'm somewhere in
I'm
that.
somewhere on the spectrum, honey. And that's where that community part comes in, right? Like that's why I say that was the missing piece for me. And it was like I became even more liberated when I could be in queer community, connecting with, connecting with the boys and having a good time with the boys and feeling the liberation of being in spaces with Black queer gay men who where I don't have to feel like my life is in danger. You know what I mean? There's safety in that. Or that has been my experience. I know that that might not be everyone's experience, but that has been my experience.
Same. It's been mine.
Um, Yeah, it is a difference because I was recently in a straight space and I was so uncomfortable being around cishet men and like having to really like boss up on them. And having that moment in the boss up where I was like, I wonder how this is gonna go. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because we never know.
We don't.
We never know how it's going to go. Um, and also being able to establish sisterhood with Black trans women, that has been life changing for me as well. And
Tell me
have,
about that journey. Like, it's a difference between being a queer woman who is just queer, but also having a trans inclusive lens around their womanhood. How was that journey for you? Who was like the first trans woman that you kind of came in contact with, and how did that journey for you? Was it a smooth journey, or did you have a learning curve that you had to do? How did that work?
um, I think, first it started with like the femme queens and the drag queens. And, I remember going to drag shows and being like, taking notes from the dolls. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let me figure out how to chisel out my cheekbones and let me figure out these, because they looked so good to me. And really celebrated femininity in a way that, you know, I didn't experience even growing up around cishet Black women. And I appreciated that and loved that. And then, of course, just gradually moving towards finding the dolls in those spaces. My first good girlfriend is Joelle Espew, who Joelle. I just remember seeing her and you know her introducing herself. She was at an event and she was like, I'm Joelle, hot girl, city girl, material girl. She gives this whole intro. And I was like, who is that? Because that's my girl. And I'm in love. And, we about to be together. Kind of like when I saw you. Um, I'm about to figure this out. What kind of courtship needs to happen?
Period.
Because I believe in, I feel that all of my relationships are romantic. So whatever attraction that I have, I feel like it's an attraction. Like when I saw Joelle, I was like, I'm attracted to her energy. It wasn't a romantic attraction or a sexual attraction, but I knew that I wanted her to be a part of my life. I knew I wanted to know her. Um, and so I made my way. And I was like, well, girl, it's up and you stuck with me. And I'm so grateful that I've always been fluid and open in the ways that I am, because the thing that I tell cis women all the time is that, you're never going to understand anybody's experience until you connect, until you have conversations, until you become a part of their lives and their journeys so that you can see, because you're in community with them and in sisterhood with them, what life is like. You know what I mean? What the challenges are, you know, what all of the joy is. You can't understand that from the outside. And I understand that it can be intimidating for some folks. I understand everybody doesn't have my energy where I just see people and I'm like, I want to know you. I think that you're dope. I respect and value you and the work that you do. And I'm a shoot my shot, whether it's a friendship shot or a romantic shot. That's never, but I do understand the apprehension that exists, but you just have to push past the fear, just like you do with them niggas. It's worth it, and worth it 10 times more than whatever you experience it with that. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I am so grateful because it's is as a journalist and as someone who is so connected to the culture, and everything that happens with Black folks, I'm reading and always in dialogue and always coming to understand, like, oh, I'm seeing the statistics. I'm seeing the way that the experiences of Black trans women as they play out in the media. Hold on, child, my nose is running. Allergies, not powder. I just had to
You
had to
don't want to
get
be like
that
a
out
Nicki
there, child.
Minaj.
While I'm pausing, let me add that. Um, but so I'm reading these statistics. I'm learning about the lives of Black trans women through the lens of scholarship, right? Through the lens of reading about what is happening as part of that more nuanced community. Um, but facts and statistics are never the thing that connects to our hearts. It's our experiences that really make us understand things and value things and understand the urgency of radicalizes us, understand the urgency of how we need to show up, you know. And
And
so that
understand
is
the key, understanding that when you open yourself to get past that fear and open yourself to people and get that experience, there are certain keys that we can unlock in you to get you out of the box that you particularly can be in around your gender, around your self-esteem, around
Mhm.
your love and for yourself and love and how and appreciate how you show up in community, and it's not just a cookie cutter way, and it
Right.
doesn't mean that you're bucking up against the system like we are, but at least if we have the courage to be us, it can actually unlock something in you, just like you being
Absolutely.
connected to us.
I am constantly on a quest towards liberation. I'm trying to become more and more free every breath that I take, every year that I live, every moment that I live. And it has definitely benefited me to be in relationship with Black trans women, and to be able to see that kind of radical liberatory
Self-love.
politic and ethic where, you know, sometimes it's a danger to show up as your full self, to be who you are. You know what I mean? And to still show up despite that. You know what I mean? Like, how can you not love that one? How can that not radicalize you too? And so yeah, I am, and definitely, and let me tell you something, like I when I think about my the dolls, like when folks be like protect the dolls, I'm like, because I don't think that I have experienced that kind of fierce love, like the love that I experienced in my sisterhood with Black trans women, because
Mhm.
they don't play
Period.
about the people that they love.
Period.
And I cannot tell you how many folks who have stories. My friend Ian Haddock, who is the founder of the Normal Anomaly here in Houston, Black gay man, will tell you point blank, period, that Black trans women saved my life.
Yeah,
They kept
he
me
said it
off
on
the
the show. He's been on the show.
they kept me off the streets. They fed me. They like it is a deep radicalizing kind of Black liberatory love that you get to experience with Black trans women. That is just otherworldly. And once you had that, it also shapes other relationships, because I can say that I used to be in those nice, nasty friendships with Black cishet women. You know what I mean? Where it's like friend of me type thing. Although I've never operated like that, or I've never desired to operate that like that, I know that I've existed in those kinds of relationships. So when you're able to be around people who have figured out how to be authentically them, then they can show up authentically in relationship with you. And there's a difference. I don't feel like there's any competition. I've been watching these clips going around from T.S. Madison's podcast where girl, the cishet girls are in a frenzy. In a frenzy. And, around this, what does this mean? Like, why would I be jealous of, you know, a trans woman? And I'm like, look at your reaction. Hit dogs holler, baby. Why are you having this reaction to that?
And why are we acting like
I did not take any offense with that. First, because I know it's true. Because everybody is capable of being jealous or envious, and it might not be that you are envying, that trans woman in the way that she looks. Maybe you're envying the way that she's able to be free. You know what I mean? Maybe she's found a
it's
kind of
mamas out
liberation.
here. It's mamas out here jealous of their daughters. It's
Yes.
mamas out here jealous of their daughter-in-law about they.
Yes.
You think
Envy is a thing. It's a human
yes,
thing. It is a human thing. Because
yes.
I'm sitting and looking at you and listen, if I wasn't the woman that I am, I'd be like, no, she too big and too fine, and I'm upset about it. Cause I'm 5'2". And I want to be big fine like that. Like I want to walk in the room and just the room to shake when I enter it because I'm that fine.
It does. It does. I
You know?
know when you walk in a room, bitch.
I know. People are always like when they meet me, they be like, I didn't know you was so small. I was like, yeah, I don't be knowing I'm that small either until I'm next to somebody tall. And I'll be like, damn, I'm small. But that envy could exist if I didn't have the love for myself. I haven't done the work that I've done to love and value myself in the way that I do, and felt like I was in some competition with trans women. And what the competition be around? Girl.
Child, it's so many envy shows up in many ways, and even on the show, they were saying that we're not talking about all women. We're talking about
Right.
the ones who we're talking about. If it's not
Yeah.
you, then it's not you.
It's not you. If it don't apply, let it fly. Isn't that what they say?
Right.
It is literally just that simple. I am, because I'm a comment reading girl. And I'm reading these comments and I'm looking at all of these cishet Black women, and I'm just like, y'all need to go and see somebody about that. You need to go talk to the lady. Like, what is the percentage of, and I understand. There are two things that I understand about this dynamic. One, visibility. Like, Black trans women are visible in a way that they have not been in other eras, right? Like before the age of Instagram and social media, like you had to know where the dolls were.
Right.
You know what I mean? In order to have experiences with them,
Yeah.
you had to be in that community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now you can just scroll on the internet, and so visibility is creating a lot of tension for cishet women because they are seeing women like you who are just so gorgeous and who are so talented and who have such amazing voices to share with the world, and they're like, well, now wait a minute, Because if she could be that, and I can be, I'm supposed to be able to have more than her. I'm supposed to be prettier than her. I'm supposed to be finer than her. And I'm not, so I'm mad. That's number one. And number two, I also understand that everything has historical context. And I understand that Black women historically have had to fight so hard to be seen as women, right? When we look at the history of Black women's experience in this country alone, it's like, first of all, we were not even seen as human beings. We were seen as chattel, as cattle, as animals, essentially, breeding animals. Um, and the idea of womanhood really revolves around these are white supremacist patriarchal ideals that never intended for Black women to be a part of them in the first place. And so Black women have been fighting tooth and nail their entire lives. I think about Zora Neale Hurston and Their Eyes Were Watching God, and when Janie has her first experience, her first orgasm, and she kisses, the boy, at the gate. And that was the first time that her grandmother slapped her or hit her. And she was so devastated by that. But her grandmother was like, I got to keep you chaste. I got to keep you. You have to hold on to your womanhood.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you aren't going to be safe in this world. And so that's a lot to contend with. So when you think there are women who don't understand that actually is what they are fighting against.
Mhm.
They're fighting against a world that constantly, because let me tell you something. If you a brown skin, tall, Black woman with ethnic features, you very might easily be, you know, called a man. And hell, they call me a man sometimes because of my energy. You know what I mean? Like that's the first insult that they throw at a Black woman is that you a man, you act like a man, you look like a man or a monkey.
Masculine. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You act like a man. You in your masculine energy. You act like a man. You look like a man. So that threat of having your womanhood stolen from you, taken away from you, is a constant threat that I think Black women have to contend with. But they're fighting the wrong enemy.
And instead of seeing us shit, we going through the same shit.
We going through the
Um,
same shit.
you're seeing it as almost like operating from a place of scarcity. Like we're
Right.
like we're not taking away or taking room for you. We actually are making room for you to be wherever, because I think about people who have, we got a lot of Black women that are affected by like PCOS. We have a lot of
Yes.
there's things that can make you a little bit biologically a little bit more masculine. And so
Let
trans
me tell you.
women are actually making it more open.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I tell people this all the time. I'm like, people get to digging around in your fucking chromosomes, girl. Ain't no telling what they gonna come up with.
Period.
Because that XXYY is a lie for a lot of us.
It
If
was
you get
intentionally simplified for people who young. So
right,
a lot of y'all motherfuckers didn't either go to college or even go to college level biology class to understand
right.
that it gets deeper than
It is a
XY.
spectrum. It
Yeah,
is a plethora of different types of gender dynamics, even if we're talking about or the dynamics of sex. You know
yeah,
what I mean? There are like, not gender because we understand gender is a social
yeah.
construct, but
The
like
actual
there
sex,
a plethora of
male,
sex,
female,
male,
male,
female.
female.
Male, female is here, not here.
Right.
And it's a whole bunch in between. You can't even, they don't meet
And it's
or
multiple.
even come close.
You have the actual structure of your body. You have the chemical makeup of your body, and then you have the chromosomes of your body, all of which can be in multiple layers,
That's it.
3D layers of how you manifest as a humanoid. It's so
Yes.
ways. Not
That's
to, and
it.
that's just on the inside of you. Not to mention the gender stuff, the structure outside of you, which is totally informed by your culture, about all
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and so girl, I be trying to have these conversations, but it is exhausting. So I can't imagine trying to have those conversations as a trans woman. You know what I
Period.
mean? Like it is it wears me out. I'd be
So,
like, well, girl, just fuck never mind. Just I've been like unfollowing folks. Child, I saw a clip on Instagram today of this black masculine woman who was talking about having an experience where she's in the gym and she's in the locker room and there is a trans woman in the locker room and she's like, I'm in there naked and this man is in there. And I'm like, girl, they probably think you a man before they think she's a man. Like, how does that work? Do you not understand that mask presentation, like studs, mask presenting women are definitely on the line of trans identity. You know?
yeah.
It's weird. It's weird. That was so weird looking at this masculine woman have this whole meltdown around safety and how she felt unsafe. And I was like, girl, you got to unpack that because, you
And
know,
then, wait. And then when somebody feels you come in there looking this mask as a woman, and somebody who is a femme white woman or femme something else
right,
does the same thing to you, you're gonna think that your pussy is gonna save you, but
right.
they're gonna call the police on you and put
They
you
are
in a bitch
going
too.
they are going to call the police on you and they're going to think you're looking at them before they'll think that trans woman is clocking and looking at. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like it was just so ridiculous. And then just to read the comments and I was just like it really, at first I was pissed. I definitely unfollowed the person. But it it really hurt. Like it hurt. It was a soft spot for me because I was like, wow, like I understand the root of it, like all of the things that I discussed before. So I understand there is a real pain of trying to like find your way into an identity that will not accept you.
Mhm.
Because if we are really going to talk about womanhood, black, cis, or trans women do not fit into society's idea of what is a representation of womanhood.
Right.
And so I understand that ache,
Yeah.
but trans women are not the source of that ache. You got to go see the lady.
I want to talk about love with you because I know that love is at the center of your social justice and healing strategy. And I want to talk about why that is. Why is love so important to get to the root of all these problems that ache? Tell
Mm.
me, why is love your center point?
I think that I remember having this conversation when I was, a young journalist and first forming, deep opinions about like the world and beginning to make those, start out blogging before I started writing professionally. And this was like in the old school Black Twitter days where it was really like a community. So I was able to build like, an audience through Black Twitter. And at the time, I was going through a divorce. I was moving towards becoming a single mama. I loved this man that I was with, and I could not understand why us being together was so hard. And that is when I started digging into love through the lens of historical perspective for Black folks. when we talk about um, liberation, when we talk about reparations, when we talk about all of these things that we understand that we deserve as Black people who have experienced what we've experienced in this country, right? We always talk about it from the perspective of like economics, right? Like your 40 acres and a mule. But like we never talk about what the cost has been for us and what we have lost through our inability to love one another in safety. We have lost so much because we were not able to love each other in safety. Um, I remember doing a lot of research when I wanted to start writing about Black love and trying to better understand it. And of course, I started with, you know, the bell hooks who really broke down love for me through this lens of like social justice and liberation and like love and abuse cannot coexist. All of these things that we need to examine as Black folks who have had so much stolen from us and who have experienced so much trauma and violence at the hands of folks in this country, right? I remember reading these letters between these, between the enslaved, papers, letters, and reading how, people were sold away, families separated. This is the original family separation. This is the original CPS. You know what I mean? Where people are torn apart from the people that they love. And I remember reading this one letter, and it was this enslaved Black man who was writing to um, a woman who had been his wife, and he was writing her and hoping that the letter would find her, first of all, because who even knows? He was sold away from her. And he was taught, he was apologizing because he was taking a new wife, because he never knew if he would be reunited with her, but still loved her so deeply. And also had to leave his children. And he begged her, like, could she send locks from his children's hair? Like, something that he could hold on to from his children that he was sold away from.
Mm.
And like the ache and the pain of that. I can talk about politics and I can talk about culture and I can talk about reparations through the lens of like economics and equity and all of those things. But like, what is more important than love? And what, when I think about Black folks who have achieved so much, who've have the economic, you look at somebody like Tyler Perry,
Mm.
billionaire, right? Ache because of a lack of love or because of, not being loved in the ways that he deserved to be loved. Money can't fix that.
No.
You know what I mean? So what better thing to invest in than to understand our legacy of love? Why we love the way that we do, why we and ache the way that we do because we haven't experienced the love that we want and deserve, how that trauma has compounded from generation to generation. And this is what we talk about when we talk about intergenerational trauma and intergenerational curses. A lot of this revolves around how we have been loved or how we have not been loved.
And I think this goes back to the conversation about the unlocking things within the trans experience, because I consider my transition a radical self-love.
Yes.
So radical that I'm willing to buck up against whatever the system that says girl does this, boy does this, man does this, woman does this, da 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 da. When you were born this way, this is your path. I,
Yeah.
I love myself enough to go opposite of that and deal with whatever the consequences are. I know it's going to be a hard fight. I know it's going to be obstacles that come in my way. I was warned by my mother. I was warned by the people in my life. People were throwing the AIDS epidemic at me. You're going to get AIDS. You're going to do this.
Mm.
You're going to fire, brimstone, the Bible says, and da every fucking thing in my life was telling me to hate myself and hide who I was. But I loved myself enough to say, no, whatever the consequences are, I am going to walk through this world in my truth, regardless if I'm
Yes.
offended or not. I'm going to walk through the world in my truth, love myself radically, and do what I need to do to present however, whatever doors close, cool, but I'm going to figure out what path to go. And I think if that is unlocked in us individually and in us as a cultural community, that
Yes.
radical self love, that is the only way that we can buck up at this system, period.
That's it. That's it. Because love and value go together. You know, we learn to value ourselves. It's connected to how much we're able to love ourselves. And we see what a lack of love has done and continues to do. It also is how we heal. You know, a lot of us experience our first heartbreaks and trauma in our formative relationships. Those are love relationships.
Yeah.
The way that we heal that is by continuing to be in relationship. And that's why with Love No Limit, I want to have always expansive conversations because what you just described is a love conversation. I think that we want to narrow down the way that we just define and even think about love culturally and societally. We just want to center romantic love. But there is familial love, there is platonic love.
Mhm.
Like some of us will do anything for a romantic connection, but are terrible fucking friends.
Mhm.
Those are love relationships. The relationship that we have with ourselves is a love relationship.
Yeah.
The dynamics of our families, those are love relationships, better or worse, right? And it, yes, romantic love is great. I've done a lot of work to decenter romantic love in the way that I think about and conceptualize love and lean more
And
into,
happiness.
yeah, yes. And it's been the best decision. It's been the best decision. It's allowed me to flow so much freer in life. And then also, it's like what Bell Hooks says is that the love that we should be striving towards and the love that all of these other loves should pour into is communal love. That's what a lot of us are looking for,
Right.
honestly. You know, when I think about, I remember being in therapy and addressing, some traumas from my past. And one of the first exercises that we did was like defining things, right? Like, well, how do you define love? How do you define safety? How do you define all of these things? And we were talking about it through the lens of relationship, romantic relationship, because I feel like that's how I ended up in therapy, like trying to maneuver through some heartbreak around that, which really was connected to heartbreak from my childhood. You know what I mean? I found that out later. But as we're doing these definitions, and I'm like, I don't know, I've never experienced it. I've never experienced safety. I've never experienced these things. And she was like, well, I don't think that's true. Let's just think deeply. What about your friendships? And I was like, well, damn, that's where I feel safe. That's where I feel loved. That's where I feel supported. A lot of that has happened in my friendships, not in my romantic relationships, you know? And so love is it. Love, what better thing to vision around than love? And love is like it's the root of everything. It is the guiding force. What is that? Che Guevara says, true revolutionaries are guided by love.
Mhm.
Nobody is out here working in community if there is not a love there.
Right. Gimme, gimme, gimme euphoria. more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme euphoria, more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme you. It's a feeling and a high you never come down from. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What has brought you euphoria this week?
What has brought me euphoria this week? I have been, I'm a mama. I have a daughter who is almost 20 years old. She'll be 20 in November. And I just continue to be like, wow, bitch, like you 20 years, she ain't been hospitalized, ain't neither one of y'all in no institutions. Like you really made it. Um, my daughter is neurodiverse, and we're still learning a lot about what that means for her, which means that the relationship that I thought that I would have with her and the person that I thought she would become and all of these things has shifted and changed, right? I have been working really hard as a mama to see my daughter as who she is, as opposed to who I imagined that she would be,
Mm.
you know. And I think we're figuring it out. So my euphoria has been us having some good mama daughter time. We have been, she loves all kinds of different cultures and cuisines. And so we've been experiencing that because living in Houston gives you an opportunity to experience all the different cultures and all the different cuisines, and just being able to smile and laugh with her, and to know that we both are still committed to finding our way to each other over and over again, is really bringing me a lot of joy and euphoria.
Mm.
Euphoria, yeah.
For me, I recently found a hard drive from about 15 years ago.
Is this where these photos have been coming from?
Yes,
Oh, girl.
so for about 15 years ago. So there's a lot of pictures that I had in this hard drive, and I'm like, oh wow! Like I remember having, I don't want to say low self-esteem. I just remember just really critiquing my body really, really hard at that time, and as somebody who has gained weight and don't have that body, and how I can look back at it and
You're
appreciate
like, girl,
it.
you was so motherfucking fine.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, da 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 da. But remembering how I felt about myself then and how I was critiquing myself and looking at it as a mistake because bitch, you was fine. Why the fuck would you critique
Fine.
yourself that hard? And then reflecting on myself now and saying, bitch, still enjoy the body you have now and enjoy
That's
what it
right.
is and
Because
love
in
it.
another however many
It
years,
may
you
change
gonna look
again.
back at this body and be like,
Exactly.
she was fine.
Yeah, so that I think the me having the maturity to recognize that instead of it sending me and kind of like, oh, I wish I had that body. No,
Yeah.
my brain said, love the body that you have right now and enjoy it. And that having that maturity brought me euphoria.
Oh, I
That
love
that
that.
maturity brought me euphoria this week where I'm like, yo, you was fine then and you fine now and yo, enjoy it, love it, because that's who you are and it's the only body you got.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's what brought me euphoria this week.
I love that. I have been sharing with you in these moments. And of course, I didn't know you then, but looking at those photos, I see such a softness and a sweetness and even a bit of of innocence. I don't know how to explain it when I look at those photos. And I'm like, look at the young stallion. Like it's like there's a certain sweetness, and not that you still don't look sweet, but you look, you grown woman sweet now. There's just like I don't know, like a certain innocence or sweetness, and I don't know if this to be true, but I just know looking at those photos, I'm like, oh, look at her. Look at young Diamond.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Josie, thank you for spending this time with me. You like I said in the beginning, you are somebody when I see you coming, there's a familiarity that comes that feels like love, and I can tell that it's at the center of you because I can feel it, your warmth when I come in your vicinity. And so, yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Listen, I'm like, we need a podcast. Listen, I'm putting more work on your list, but I would love to. We got to figure out how to have more of these conversations because it is such a joy. And I know that, this is your show and you're interviewing me, and I have the opportunity to kind of interview you, but I enjoy when we're able to push and pull and be in conversation. It really is a beautiful thing for me. So thank you for having me.
Let the people know where they can find you.
Listen, y'all, now, I am on Instagram. I'm trying to find my way to Threads, child. I'll be posting there every once in a while, but just follow me on Instagram on @JoNubian. If I'm doing things in the city or, whatever work that I'm doing and wherever I'll be, I usually post it there. So I'm @JoNubian on Instagram and on Threads. So you can follow me there and say hi.
And I'm going to put all of those links in the bottom. Make sure y'all go check her out. And yeah, we will see y'all next week. Have a wonderful night.
Hi.
The best way to support is to engage with the content. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Another way to support, if you got a couple of dollars, become a patron. And if you can't do any of that, you can at least follow us on social media, where you'll get our random hot takes and just us sharing all the people and things that we love that is black, trans, queer, centered. Yeah, come check us out.